Hi, I'm Liz. Thank you for joining me. Today we are going to go through some recovery work, which is really important, and it is often overlooked and neglected, and guilty as here. I definitely am one of those people that can often do lots of training. I love to move, but find the kind of stretching and the foam rolling, which we're going to go through today, I tend to maybe sit down for a few minutes and then go, oh no, I've got to go do this, so I'll get up and don't actually do the length that I should. And as a massage therapist, something that I should definitely be preaching is recovery. I do get regular massage about once a month, but just depending on how much training you're doing, that may not be enough. So we do need to stretch. We do need to foam roll as well. So if you do all that already, thumbs up to you, that's awesome. But if you don't, or maybe you don't do it as often as you should, here is a little kind of, say a little bit of a kick up the buttocks to bring it into your life a little more often. And it doesn't have to be for hours. It can be, 10, 15 minutes. At the end of the day, if you've got time while you're sitting down, if you watch Netflix, again, guilty as, you may bring out the foam roller or just sit on the floor and do some stretching while you are watching or even listening to a podcast or something like that. So, foam rolling, I'm going to take you through all the kind of major muscle groups today with the foam roller. So if you don't have one, I highly suggest investing in one. When I ask my clients if they've got one, they say yes, it's sitting in the corner of the lounge room and it basically just sits there and does that. Possibly a dog chew toy, which this one has become in the past. So I recommend grabbing that thing out of the corner of the room and starting to use it. So many benefits of foam rolling. You're going to recover better from exercise. You're going to have less soreness from exercise. You're going to increase your range of motion and your flexibility, and you're just going to feel better. So, we can stretch, which is awesome. I highly recommend doing that. More focusing on the muscles, and then our foam rolling, more focusing on the connective tissue. So the fascia that wraps around the muscles. So I'm going to show you a few little different techniques as we go to today to really target that area. And what I see people doing and kind of what we should be doing instead. So we're going to start with the quadriceps, and basically you can get a little bit of a workout while you do foam rolling. It actually can be quite challenging, some of the positions that we need to be in and hold ourselves in. So starting with the quadriceps, you can do one leg at a time or both legs at a time. So I'm going to show you both of that as well. So you're literally going to come into basically a plank position. And a lot of the time I see people kind of doing this sort of thing, which, not really targeting the areas that we want to target. So when we foam roll, really kind of important that we go nice and slow. So I love to do this on clients as well with my hands. This is a myofascial release technique. So we want to go slow, so we target that connective tissue. And by going slow, so you think of the muscle and then you think of kind of like a stocking wrapped around the muscle. It's wrapped in between all the fibers of the muscles as well. Literally connects everything to everything within your whole system. And if we're not doing things to benefit this connective tissue, there's lots of other ways that we can do this as well. Movement, yoga, yin yoga is going to affect this tissue. It can kind of lose its fluidity, we'll say. So it kind of dries up. You think of like a sponge, one of those kind of like coloured rectangular type sponges that you get for the kitchen or cleaning, and it dries up and it's sort of like you feel like you could literally kind of snap it if you were to move it. And then think about dipping it into some water, and the water gets soaked up into the sponge and it brings it back to life. That's kind of like what we're doing here with the connective tissue. So we've got this hyaluronic acid that we want to start to stimulate And by going slow, by using the roller, we're starting to stimulate that fluid coming back into the tissue. And we're literally kind of bringing it back to life, we'll say that. So nice and slow, just rolling up and down. So you can do one leg at a time. So again, just going slow, and you might kind of find there's areas where you go, oh, that's a little bit tender. So with those areas, you can stop and just kind of start to breathe nice and smoothly in and out of the nose. Start to release the weight down onto that area. So at the moment, I'm just doing the right side. That's one way that you can do it. And then another way, we can add some activeness to this position. So there's, again, you could do this manually as well. So as a massage therapist, I do this as well with people. So you imagine I'm using my hand, pressing down into that tight little spot. So right now we're using the foam roller, and you can start to do the action of that muscle. So we're flexing and extending the knee. So that kind of movement there, it might feel a little bit intense, is also helping that tissue start to release. So again, you might just kind of spend a little bit of time on that one little spot and then come back into rolling up and down nice and slow. You might find one side's a little bit more intense than the other one. And then being mindful as well with the upper body, you're not just kind of like dumping into the shoulders. So use a little bit of strength here, press down into your forearms, draw your belly in lightly, and just moving nice and slowly down through that tissue. So using your breath. So I find doing one side at a time generally feels a little bit more intense, but you kind of feel like you get into it a little bit more as well. The weight kind of evens out a bit more when you do it both sides at a time. So to do one side, literally just kind of lean to that side a little bit more, and then you can bend the other leg up, so you're just getting that one leg, so the quadricep muscles. They do often get tight from sitting. Sometimes if our glutes aren't firing properly, the quadriceps will take over, and they can get tight that way as well. So you want to spend about probably 2 to 3 minutes on each major muscle group. You can spend longer if you like. This is what I mean by saying you don't need to spend hours doing this kind of work, obviously depending on how much movement and activity you do through the week. We'll kind of vary that. Oh, I've got a bit of a knot there happening in my right rec fem. All right, so that is the quadriceps. So we're just going to do the major kind of muscle groups. I'll do a little bit of the adductors, so our inner thigh as well. So really, again, important that these are nice and released. So to do that, we come onto the inside of the thigh. So just kind of above the knee joint, onto that inner little part of the leg. And then I'm literally just going to do just the end part of it here. You can kind of roll up just as far as feels okay for you. And you get a bit of that kind of medial quad as well. And you can just kind of roll up and down. So if you do kind of suffer with any kind of knee pain, this may help alleviate that. So again, spend a little bit of time, and you can also bend and extend the knee. Adding a little bit of active movement there. And we obviously do the other side. Kind of have to get yourself into some weird positions sometimes to do foam rolling, but it is such a great tool to have and to use. I recommend about 2 to 3 times a week, obviously depending on how active you are. If you are doing some stretching as well, that is awesome, or some yoga, but you know, yoga can also be pretty challenging for the body. It's not always just nice and stretchy and okay, so that was the adductors, or you know, part of the adductors. So I'm going to move to the outside of the legs now. This is often the bit that most people find quite challenging, our IT band. I'm going to show you a way to do it so it's a little less intense. Kind of rolling along the whole length of it will make it pretty intense and just, oh, it's going to make you fight it basically. You're also going to get the lateral quadriceps as well. And within that, there is a kind of a big kind of group here of trigger points. There's about 5 trigger points that sit right there. And I kind of feel like as you roll over that, that is what you're hitting, and it's pretty damn intense usually. Obviously, depending on what's happening with your IT band as well, often that can be tight, especially if you're running or cycling a lot. We're going to show you just a way to make it a little bit nicer. It's still going to feel quite intense, but it just kind of eases it off a little bit. So we're going to start from the bottom. So again, just above the knee joint, not kind of rolling across any bones. It just doesn't feel very nice. We're going to come halfway up and just work the bottom part first, and then we're going to come up through the top part. And that just kind of makes it that little less intense. So again, here, if you want to make it like really like, take both legs off and coming in, you're almost in like a side plank kind of position here. Just again, making sure you're not dumping into your neck and your shoulders. Oh, if that's a bit too much, bring that top leg down and just ease your way through it. So don't feel like you got to kind of be like the no pain, no gain. That is absolute bullshit, especially when we come into physical therapy. If it's not hurting or it's not excruciating, it doesn't mean it's not working. So, you know, if you're causing yourself so much pain that you've got to fight it, you kind of just, you know, putting your nervous system into a bit of a response that we don't really want. We want to be able to relax into it so the tissue can actually start to let go. So just do a little bit and then come up to the top of the hip area, and then again halfway down. This side's not as bad for me. I've got a feeling the other side might feel a little bit worse. And again, if you want to spend some time, hold some pressure down, breathe. I'm not even going to attempt to bend my knee. You can if you want to though. Good, just holding, breathing. All right, so that's one side done. Again, you might want to spend a little bit more time there. Just kind of taking you through and showing you what to do. Some people kind of have never foam rolled before, or you know, don't really know how to use it. There's lots of different ways. There's lots of different techniques as well. If you've got a massage ball that you can do. Yeah, this side's a little bit more intense. I'm just showing you some basic stuff today. Don't forget to breathe. Yeah, this side's definitely a little bit more going on. That's usually the case. We've got one side that is a little tighter than the other side. We want to, as much as we can, be symmetrical, but we've generally always got some kind of asymmetries happening in the body. All right, let's go up to the top and then halfway down again. And you just kind of feel better, I think, after you foam roll. You feel like you've got this kind of bit of a charge of energy happening through your system, and you literally do. So I'm probably going a little bit too fast for what I should. So at the start I kind of said you've got to go slow, and that is exactly what we want to do. So we're affecting the tissue just kind of as we're rolling. You can kind of imagine it's just sort of being squished up We're affecting the tissue out in front as we roll. All right, IT bands, done. Whew. We're going to come into our calf muscles now. Now these are kind of generally also pretty nasty, I'm going to say that, and can be quite challenging as well. So if you've got kind of issues with your wrists where it hurts to press down into the hands, just try coming up onto your fists, and then if that is still a bit too much, you can kind of sit on the ground and start to roll with your buttocks on the ground. Do one leg at a time and just slowly kind of roll up and down the back of the leg. So you've got to lift yourself up. You can again do 2 at a time. So just going slow, so the calves are sort of horrible to release at the best of times. I know a lot of people that I massage say it's like torture, and I can definitely agree with that. I've had Andrew release my calf muscles quite a few times. Neighbours must think he's murdering me. Oh, yeah, so go nice and slow if you can. Yeah, use the breath. And again, if you find a spot where you're like, oh yeah, that's a spot, hold it. You can also point the toes, bring them back. It's a little bit of active release therapy. And then again, go slow, slow, slow. So calves can often get super, super tight, especially depending on the way you stand as well. So if you're standing with your legs locked out, I'll just kind of come up and show you. See this quite often in people, and I definitely do it myself sometimes. Legs are locked out, press your butt back, kind of dump into your lower back, your glutes switch off, and your calves take over. So just a little tip, if you find yourself doing that, just be mindful. You don't have to stand like this, but just a little softening of the knees. I often tell people to do it while they're washing the dishes, just going, oh yeah, that's right, soften the knees, and that will take pressure off your lower back. And obviously you want to do some glute strengthening stuff to bring the glutes and the core back on. So again, just going nice and slow, nice and smoothly. And swapping legs if you haven't already. So this one's not quite as bad as my right side, so right side a little bit tighter on the lower body. That's it. So again, you might stop, point. All right, from the calf muscles to the hamstrings, same thing, lifting up, nice and slowly, rolling along, and you can kind of move around the hamstring area. And you can even kind of do a little bit of like a side to side, call it shearing. Like that, if you find a spot that you kind of feels a little bit tender. So I find the hamstrings are generally my least kind of intense spot, just depending obviously on what I've been doing. Yeah, so hold, breathe, maybe you do a little bend, extend, can't really get much kind of movement in this position. And then swapping legs. So as kind of, tedious as this can be sometimes, or you think I just don't have time to do that, this is so much better than being in pain, having injuries, not feeling good, having, pain in the joints. Just a really simple thing that you can implement into your life And remember, it doesn't have to be every day. Maybe 2-3 times a week. You might spend 10-15 minutes. And you can kind of get a pretty good all over body roll, we'll call it. Okay, so hamstrings done. I'm going to move up into our glute muscles now. So I generally sit on it this way, cross one leg over. We're going to do that that butt cheek, the leg is crossed over, and just going to roll from, kind of think about going from the in to the out. So you want to sort of work through that muscle tissue, big glute max. You got piriformis. Woo. And you might stop, see if you can release your pressure into it. You can do this with a ball as well. It kind of feels like brings a few tears to the eyes. Breathe nice and smoothly. So a little kind of side to side. You can hold, you can take the leg out, bring it in, even kind of do a little bit of a side to side with the knee. And then changing sides. So I'm probably not spending the amount of time that you want to spend. So again, about 2 to 3 minutes on each muscle group, depending on what's going on. So if you're like, I need more, spend a little bit more time. So maybe one day you do the lower body, one day you do the upper body. It's good to know that both glutes are feeling basically the same. So remember, go nice and slow. All right, that is our glute muscles done. We're going to come into the back now. So we're going to roll straight up basically straight up the center of the back. So you can start kind of here. We want to come into almost like a hip, not a hip bridge position, but we stay with the butt lifted and then start to roll. You press down into your heels, squeeze your butt as you kind of roll down. You can walk down a little bit further. Every now and then you get a little crack or a pop happening. Hopefully it's a good one. And then if it feels too much for your neck, just kind of hold it, don't pull on it, but just slowly, slowly, slowly rolling through the thoracic spine there. Or it feels like it wants to do a little bit of an adjustment. Coming into the lower. So maybe you focus a bit more just on that lower part of the back, the quadratus lumborum, and all those amazing muscles that intertwine up the spine. And then come up into the thoracic area. Now, a really nice thing to do here. So, great way to open through this area here. So really important that we have got good mobility through this area, not too much obviously, but we want enough so we can actually breathe. So if we're really tight through here, can inhibit your breathing, which is what we do not want, otherwise it's basically starving your body of oxygen. So coming into this thoracic area and just kind of find a spot. You can reach the arms up. So you're gonna kind of press through the hands. So you're almost kind of coming into like a rolling the shoulders forward, pressing out through the upper back. So you take a breath in, hold it for a bit, and then breathe out. Just kind of roll down a little bit further. Take a breath in, reach the arms up, hold it, and then roll down a little bit further. And you can kind of do that as many times as you like. And you can even focus more on one side, sort of getting into that rhomboid, mid-lower trap area. And then do the other side. I just did a workout before this, lots and lots of rows and upper body work. So this is feeling quite delicious. You're basically coming up into a hip bridge, as you can see there, and then slow, slow, slow down. You can also do this lengthways down the spine, so I'll just show you that as well. So bring the foam roller like that, lie on it, and we don't necessarily want to roll the spine, but just go kind of from side to side. So just off the kind of side of the spine, getting into those multifidi muscles. They're pretty deep though. You reach the arm up and kind of get into the rhomboids there. And then do the other side. Just kind of be mindful of your neck here. Now we can also do our latissimus dorsi, these big muscles that come down the sides of the body into the oblique muscles as well. So this can be a little bit awkward, so just being mindful. So coming up, and then it's usually a spot there, teres major and minor kind of come into play. Can be pretty intense, and then just rolling down the side of the rib cage. Also just depending on how hard your foam roller is. So just getting into that side body there. And then swapping sides. Again, I'm not really spending the amount of time that we would usually do for each muscle group. Just remember, find a spot. If it feels a little bit tender and you think, oh, I want to spend a little bit of time there, do that. Good, so that was the back. Now, it can be a little bit harder to get into the chest. It can be done. So you can kind of come into that chest area there and just kind of roll from side to side. I'm not going to do it with the foam roller. It's actually easier to do it with a massage ball and get into a wall, and you just want to go kind of outwards like that from the kind of center of the sternum there out to sort of the armpit area. You can roll all along, just along underneath the clavicle there. Getting into those areas, you can find those spots. You can move the arm up and down, starting to add that active release therapy in. But I'm going to show you a really beautiful stretch to do on the foam roller. Again, just being mindful if it's a little bit shorter like that one over there. You just want to have something to either rest your head on or your hips. So this one here is generally, I think, pretty okay. So you're going to literally lie down it with it coming down the center of your back. Now here I can rest my head. It kind of almost sits right on that occipital region there. You can kind of roll your head along it and just release through the muscles that connect up into that area. There's a lot of muscles that do. There's often a lot of tension in that area. Now if your hips are hanging off the edge, use a little bit of your butt muscles and hold yourself up. Press down into your heels. If your head's hanging off the edge, maybe get yourself something like a cushion or a pillow that you can rest your head onto if the foam roller is not long enough. So one of my favourite stretches, I could stay here all day. So bring the arms up, let the arms float out to the side. Just make sure you're not kind of arching too much with the lower back. So press the lower back down into the foam roller and we just relax over that. So if you're on a computer a lot, if you're on your phone a lot, if you drive a lot, you know, I do a lot of massage, so I've kind of always got this sort of forward motion. Feels just amazing just to kind of reverse that movement, that position. Open up through the chest. And just lie here and breathe. So it feels good just to lie like this. You can target that different areas, excuse me, of the pec muscle, bending through the elbows. You can reach the arms up a little more and then even just sort of bring them down a little bit more. And just kind of find a spot that feels good, where you feel that stretch happening. For me, when I bring them out wide, I feel it all the way down that arm line, sometimes into the hand. You just stay for as long as you feel you need. And then coming on up. So that was foam rolling, or a little bit of foam rolling just for the major kind of muscle groups. Like I said, there's lots of different ways that you can do it. I just showed you a couple of different techniques to use. So that shearing kind of motion, getting that side to side cross fiber friction over the muscle tissue, working actively. So using the actual muscle while you're holding pressure down onto a tight spot can also help to alleviate the pain and release the tissue. So hopefully you find this helpful. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time.